I never imagined a poor girl could change a millionaire CEO's daughter's life forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun sparkled through the leaves, but a storm brewed inside me. I felt small, drowning in my worn-out sneakers, as I stared up at the towering glass building. It loomed over me like a silent giant, its polished edges reflecting the perfect life I'd never have. My heart raced. Today was the day. My fingers trembled as I clutched the piece of paper, crumpled and stained with the remnants of my lunch. It held a single address, a promise and a prayer. I needed this. Her dad was rich, powerful, and I was desperate. Where else could a girl like me find hope? I could barely keep my emotions in check, tears threatening to well up. I thought of my mom working nights, exhaustion etched into her face every morning. I couldn't let her down. Somewhere in that building was a girl named Lily. A girl with everything: fancy clothes, bright laughter, an endless stream of friends. But I'd heard whispers. Whispers of loneliness, of how she felt like a ghost in her own life. What if I could reach her? What if she needed me just as much as I needed her? The thought made my heart flutter. Our worlds were on opposite ends, but desperation has a strange way of bridging gaps. I pushed through the revolving doors, my palms sweaty, breathing in the sterile smell of wealth. It was both suffocating and exhilarating. My shoes clicked against the marble floor, echoing like a heartbeat in the tense silence. I approached the reception desk, my voice nearly a whisper. "I'm here to see Lily," the receptionist eyed me skeptically, her perfectly manicured nails tapping the desk impatiently. Her gaze felt like ice on my skin. I thought of the hundreds of people who must have walked through these doors, their confidence radiating like light. What did she see in me? A poor girl with a patched-up backpack, clinging to hope. "Do you have an appointment?" she snapped, her tone dripping with condescension. I felt my chest tighten. No appointment. Just a dream. My breath hitched. I wasn't ready to go back home, to the darkness. I'd come too far to turn around. As I opened my mouth to respond, the elevator chimed behind me. The doors slid open slowly, like the moment before a big reveal. I turned my head just in time to see her. Lily stepped out, clad in pristine white, her hair cascading over her shoulders like silk. She was radiant, but something flickered in her eyes, a fleeting shadow, a familiar sadness. I wanted to scream, to call out to her. But in that split second time froze. I held my breath as she looked in my direction. It was as if the entire world fell away. Would she see me? Would she understand? Then, her expression shifted. A flicker of recognition, followed by confusion. I felt my heart race faster. This was my moment, but something deep inside me twisted with uncertainty. Could I really change her life? Could she really change mine? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the brief moment of eye contact shimmered between us, an unsteady tidal wave of emotions surged within me. I took a shaky step forward, feeling as if gravity had shifted. Lily's face became a kaleidoscope of feelings, curiosity flickering amidst a backdrop of doubt as she squinted my way, seemingly trying to place me. I swallowed hard, my throat thick with a wave of desperation and embarrassment. Hey, I managed to say, my voice barely a whisper. I'm looking for you. The receptionist, a stone wall of neutrality, raised an eyebrow at me, as if my presence was an inexplicable anomaly. But Lily, the girl who swam in a sea of grandeur, took a small step toward me, a gentle crease forming in her brow. I held my breath, unconsciously comparing our worlds, her pristine threads against my worn fabric, luxury against survival. Do I know you? Her voice was soft but guarded, the kind that only a rich girl could afford to wear. Yet, behind her cool armor, I caught a glimpse of that loneliness I had heard about. It was the same feeling that brushed my sleeve every night when I lay awake, wondering if I would ever matter to anyone. There was something encouraging in her gaze despite her uncertainty, an ember of warmth wrapped in caution. I could see her longing to know me just as much as I needed to know her. I took one more step closer. Not yet. But I think I could help you. A ripple of disbelief flashed across her face. Help me? She echoed. With what? I hesitated, the weight of those words pressing down like a heavy shroud. Part of me wanted to spill everything, the fears that clung to me, the way my mother worked herself to the bone, the way life seemed stacked against people like us. But how could I burden her with my struggles? What did I know about her pain? Just then, an alarming beep from her phone sliced through the tension. She glanced down at it like a lifeline had been thrown her way. I have to go, she said, hesitation flickering in her eyes again before she turned to walk back to the elevator. Wait. The word burst from my lips, a desperate plea. Before I thought through the repercussions, I stepped forward, stopping her in her tracks. I know a little about loneliness. I've heard maybe we could talk. Maybe we could help each other. There was a crack in her polished exterior. She turned slowly, her expression caught in a strange limbo. Hope shimmered in the background, teasing the edges of despair. She cast a glance to the receptionist, who was watching everything with narrowed eyes, then back at me, as if weighing the impossibility of what was unfolding. I can't just, she started, looking frazzled, but there was something Maureen inkling of intrigue, maybe even a flicker of recognition of the truth in my words. The elevator doors were about to close, but a heartbeat of silence spilled between us. Please. Just one moment. Just one honest moment, just you and me. In what felt like eternity, she considered my request, the air thick with unsaid words. Fine, she said finally, her brow unfurling but reluctance still tangled in her voice. I have a cafeteria break. I can spare a few minutes. That was all I needed. An opening. We hurried down the corridor toward the expansive cafeteria, the hum of chatter and clinking silverware filling the air. The lavish surroundings almost swallowed me alive, yet my focus remained on Lily, who felt like a glowing star against my dim world. We selected a quiet corner booth, where the world faded away for just a few minutes, and vulnerability turned into our unspoken language. So, why did you come looking for me? She asked, her arms folded defensively across her chest. I bit my lip, weighing how much to share. I heard you're not as happy as everyone thinks, I uttered, daring myself to meet her gaze. I know what it's like to mask the loneliness with a smile. Her eyes softened, giving strength to the words I'd just laid bare. It's complicated, she murmured, and I could sense the heaviness of hidden truths in her voice. Just then, a familiar face burst into my thoughts, the boy from my neighborhood, the one who always seemed to find himself in trouble. My heart sank a little deeper into worry. My mother had always warned me about him, about the troubles that stain your life in irrational pigments. I am not sure if I can help you, I confessed quietly, uncertainty clawing at my resolve. But I want to try. Lily inhaled deeply, a heaviness lingering in her forlorn gaze. And what about you? Why are you really here? Before I had the chance to answer, my phone buzzed violently on the table, shattering the fragile cocoon we'd woven. I glanced at the screen, my heart dropping. It was a picture of the boy, the same boy who found trouble too easily. He had sent a photo from outside the café, a snapshot of his wildness, and in the background was my mom, her tired eyes dropping to the ground, her shoulders pulled tight from the life she carried. Something twisted within me. I have to go. The words came out instinctively, an urgency propelling me into action. Wait, Lily darted forward, concern edging her voice. Please tell me you'll come back. At least let me know you're okay. I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me at her words, something I had not dared to expect. I promise, I lied, perhaps too easily, driven by the fear of leaving her behind. A promise woven with uncertainty and yearning. As I turned to leave, my thoughts consumed me a feeling of dread swimming in my stomach as I rushed through the glass doors, my life waiting outside. The boy who brought chaos, and my mother, fragile and weary, stood in stark contrast to the glimmer of hope that just flicked into existence with Lily, but the more I stepped into the daylight, the more I realized that life doesn't just exist in black or white blooms and the spaces in between. And in the midst of that fragile hope, I felt the ground beneath me shaking, a tremor hinting at storms yet to come. I wasn't prepared for what waited outside. The sun, a glaring orb looming overhead, seemed to magnify my anxiety, its heat seeping into my bones. I could still hear the echo of Lily's voice in my ears, feel the weight of her concern pressing on my chest. It was a connection I hadn't anticipated, an emotional lifeline intertwined with the fractures of my reality. As I lunged forward, my feet carried me absent-mindedly toward the shadowy corner of the street, my mind racing with thoughts of my mother. I pulled out my phone, my heart drumming at the sight of the boy's message. The picture was a stark reminder of my responsibility, a wake-up call shattering the transient serenity I had found with Lily. Where are you? The message read, alongside the photo that clouded my mind with dread. Was this trouble I could fix? Could I even assuage my mother's burdens, or was I as powerless as I felt most days? Just around the corner, I texted back, my fingers trembling slightly as I pressed send. Caught in the web of my own contradictions, I was torn between the hope that glimmered in my encounter with Lily and the chaos that awaited me. A few minutes passed before I spotted him, his silhouette sharp against the backdrop of the café. He leaned back against the brick wall, his arms crossed and a devil-may-care grin plastered across his face. But even that facade couldn't hide the mischief that hung about him like a noxious cloud. Hey! He called, waving me over as if we were long-lost friends. I forced a smile, approaching cautiously. I knew you'd come. Check this out. He swung his phone around and flashed another image at met his time, a video of him skateboarding across a busy street, the thrill of reckless abandon evident in every second captured. Yeah, great. My voice cracked with irritation. Did you seriously just bail on the plans we made? He shrugged, an effortless move that seemed to mock the weight I bore on my shoulders. Plans change, babe. You wouldn't understand that, would you? You're too busy trying to be responsible. A wave of frustration washed over me. Responsible? In trying to keep my family intact. We can't afford your games. I took a step back, the reality of my world crashing against the reckless abandon of his. His amusement faltered for a moment, and something deeper flickered in his eyes, but then he dismissed it with a scoff. Right, the perfect life, huh? Just like them. He gestured toward the glass building visible from the lane we stood on, a contemptuous twist to his lips. A moment later, I felt the heat of shame rising in my cheeks, but I refused to back down. Don't act like you know me or my life, I shot back, my heart racing. You don't know what I've been through, what my mom sacrifices every single day. I could feel tears prickling at the corners of my eyes, and I blinked them back furiously. At that, he laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the alleyway. You're right. I don't. But who would want to? You're all about the sad stories, huh? I felt drained, wrestling with emotions I couldn't decipher. Was it envy or pity? In this moment, what was truly at stake? Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't the boy, but a notification from the building. It was a reminder about the gala mandatory event for Lily's father's company. My pulse quickened, memories flooding back of her sparkling laughter, the way she brightened the sterile air of the cafeteria. Lily. I whispered to myself, and just like that, a newfound determination surged through me. I couldn't let the chaos of my life swallow the small glimmer of hope I had clung to. Whatever, I muttered, turning my back on the boy. I didn't know if I would go through with my promise to Lily, if I truly had the strength to face the life I lived and the people I cared about, but I would find a way. As I walked away, shadows mingling with patches of sunlight, a nagging thought scratched at my mind. What if I showed up at the gala? What if I did reach out to Lily, and her world brought a change to mine? What if there was something bigger than both of us waiting to unfold? but the biggest what if loomed in the background. What if my troubles leaked into her life like ink on paper, marring the pristine sheen of her world? I shoved my hands into my pockets, staring down at the ground, hardly noticing the pulse of life all around me until a jarring sound cut through my thoughts. A loud crash from the alleyway caught my attention, followed by a scream piercing the afternoon air. My heart jumped. I turned sharply, scrambling to see where the sound came from. Just ahead, chaos erupted. People clustered around a scene that seemed too vibrant, and amidst it, I thought I saw the boy I had just left crumpled to the ground. The world twisted, and my heart plummeted. Without thinking, I broke into a sprint, driven by an impulse that sent shockwaves through me that could change everything, pulling me once again into the maelstrom I thought I could escape. The air felt electric as I darted toward the commotion, panic surging with every stride. I could see the boy, his figure lay crumpled, a stark contrast to the vibrant colors of the street. The crowd surged around him like a chaotic ocean, bright tops and dark expressions blending together as they tried to comprehend what had just happened. Move back. A commanding voice cut through the noise, and a tall figure began to push through the throng of onlookers, clad in a crisp uniform, the badge glinting ominously in the sun. My muscles tightened, and I felt the urge to turn away, to escape the scene unfolding before me, yet something rooted me to the ground. What's wrong with him? I choked out, my throat dry and trembling. An elderly woman, frail and shaken, pointed to the boy, her hands trembling as she muttered incoherently about an accident, about something flying off its course. My heart raced as I inched closer, trying to catch a glimpse of his face, to see if he was breathing, to find some sign of life amidst the chaos. Just then, I felt a hand on my shoulder, firm yet gentle. Step back. Let the paramedics through. A paramedic moved beside me, focused and efficient. His presence grounded me, but my heart remained a tempest of uncertainty. The world closed in, and the noise faded as if coupled with the throbbing in my ears. As they assessed the situation, I caught glimpses of the boy's face. There was something both defiant and vulnerable in the way he breathed shallowly, his eyes flitting open and closed like a flickering flame. I felt an unexpected swell of sympathy, ignited by some incongruous familiarity. Just days before, his bravado had echoed off the walls of my own turmoil, and now he lay at the precipice of something unrecognizable. Please, God, not now, I whispered, the words slipping from my lips as I wrestled against the rising tide of dread in my heart. I couldn't afford Thiscold and afford to care, yet here I was, trapped in an emotional bind that unraveled my intentions to pull away from his reckless life. The crowd began to thin as emergency personnel arrived, their movements deliberate and practiced. Through the din of sirens and shouts, the reality of my own life sunk in like a weight I couldn't shake. I thought of my mother, of Lily, of the delicate thread that kept us all tied together, and the safety I was trying desperately to protect. Yet, I had no control over this unpredictable moment that split my focus and reeled me back into the chaos of care where I had tried to escape. As the ambulance doors swung open, a gaggle of curious onlookers scattered, the spectacle of the accident losing its allure. I stood there, feet glued to the ground, unable to will myself to leave. The boy was loaded onto a stretcher, and in the midst of the chaos surrounding him, he met my gaze with a struggle to hold on to something unspoken. I felt the intensity of those moments hover, suspended between silence and the background noise of the world. I took a hesitant step toward him, my heart racing. You're going to be okay, I murmured, though even I didn't believe my own words. Yet, that silence between us felt like a fragile agreement, a tether binding our conflicting worlds for one breath, one shared heartbeat. The paramedics shifted around him, their focus unwavering as one turned to me. Do you know him? What? No, I shook my head, emotions spilling over like the salty remnants of a storm. It was too much, fragments of thoughts colliding in my mind. He was just in the alley. I didn't mean forget your thoughts straight, he cut in, his shrewd gaze assessing my face, but there was no accusation in his tone, only urgency. If you're connected, you need to notify someone. Well, take care of him, but someone should know. The weight of the statement bore down on me. In the chaos that ebbed and flowed around us, a cold drip of dread swept through me. If something had happened, if this reckless boy I had just recently crossed paths with wouldn't recover, that would taint not only his life but every decision I had made up until now. An avalanche of guilt threatened to crumble the fragile foothold I had on stability. "Just call my number," I blurted out in a haze, my fingers fumbling to pull up my phone from my pocket, the screen glowing too brightly against the storm raging in my gut. "Just in case, who is that?" A familiar voice broke through the noise. I turned to see Lily approaching, her expression shifting instantly from bewilderment to concern as she caught sight of the stretchers and the crowd. Fear flickered in her eyes as she glanced between me and the scene, piecing together the fracture in the moment. "Someone I might know," I said, uncertainty coloring my tone. "I'll call my father," she said resolutely, her phone already at her ear. It was then I realized how deeply intertwined our lives had become through sheer coincidence, undeniable connections, and fragile ties. But just as a lift of hope flickered within me, an unsettling thought struck, sharper than any pain. What if the collision of our lives resonated with consequences no one could foresee? As Lily stepped away, fear etched into every line of her face, I collided with the paralyzing truth waiting beneath the surface. All the connections I made, all the hopes I harbored, could spiral into a disaster that eclipsed everything I had locked away, undeniably uncharted territory. And while those emergency lights flickered in the distance, darkness wrapped itself around me with the weight of a million unspoken fears, all anchored to the boy who lay, vulnerable, on the edge of something irreversible. The sirens sliced through the stillness of the afternoon, their wails echoing like a lament for all the untold stories unfolding within us. I felt unanchored, my emotions swirling in a tempest as I stood rooted in place. The boy, the paramedics, Lily, all were threads in an intricate tapestry woven with despair and urgency. "Will you come to the hospital?" Lily's voice cut through my thoughts, full of concern yet laced with the edges of uncertainty. I turned to her, taking in her wide eyes and the tremor in her hands. "I don't know if I can. What if I'm just overthinking it? What if this has nothing to do with me?" "But it might," she insisted gently, stepping closer. "You know him better than anyone here. If something happens, you have to be there." Her words struck me like a chord. I clenched my fists, feeling the heat of despair rising in me as I continued to imagine every possibility that could play out in those sterile hospital halls. I fought against the instinct to recoil, to draw back into the cocoon of distance I had spun around myself. But the fear of inaction was far more paralyzing than any bravado I had summoned before. "Okay," I finally replied, my voice barely a whisper. "Let's go." We started to weave through the crowd, the shifting faces reflecting a mix of curiosity and pity, and each pair of eyes felt like another pull on my conscience. I was sure that the weight of it would crush me. Everyone there was caught in the web of consequences that seemed to thread back to my own history. Yet, as we approached the ambulance, a sudden strike of compassion burst forth from an unexpected source. An elderly man, beads of sweat glistening on his forehead, stepped forward from the throng of bystanders. "Here," he said, extending a bottle of water toward us. "You both look like you could use this." "Thank you," I managed to croak out, the kindness a gentle balm amid my turmoil. I unscrewed the cap and took a hesitant sip, the cool water feeling foreign and refreshing, as though it might wipe away the chaos of the moment. "Be brave," he added, his voice raspy but warm. "Things have a way of working themselves out." With that, he shuffled back into the crowd, leaving a flicker of randomness that somehow widened the space inside my chest, if only for a moment. That we arrived at the hospital, where the pungent smell of antiseptic assaulted my senses. The sterile atmosphere was both frightening and familiar, a paradoxical shelter against my fears. I clutched Lily's hand tightly, a silent pact against whatever lay ahead. "What if he doesn't make it?" I whispered, my voice cracking with the weight of dread. Lily stopped walking, turning to face me as her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Then well, remember him. He made an impact for a reason, even if it was for a brief moment." "Remember him? How?" "I barely knew him," I protested, my mind racing to process the emotional knots tightening within me. "But he was real," she persisted, her voice barely above a murmur. "Real enough to matter." I looked at her, the depth of her compassion striking a chord deep within me. In that moment, I felt the pulsations of hope entwined with grief, a fragile balance that brought clarity. Before I could respond, a voice called out from the hallway, "Are you here for the boy?" A nurse stepped into view, her expression balancing professionalism with empathy, the stark white uniform a testament to the somber reality cradled in this building. Yes. I rushed forward, desperately needing answers. He's stable for now, but he's still critical. A head injury can be unpredictable. She paused, gauging our reactions with practiced care. Only one person can see him at the moment. Lily glanced at me, the question unspoken yet echoing between us. It wasn't a choice I could make lightly. How could I step into that room and confront the fear wrapped around the boy's fragile life? But in that breath, I also felt something unfathomably deep, the yearning to reconcile the shadows of my past with the flickering promise of compassion that lingered in the air. "Go," Lily urged, her voice unwavering. "He needs you. Whether you know it or not, you're already woven into his story." With a nod, I took a tentative step down the hallway, my heart pounding louder than my footsteps. Each door I passed seemed to whisper stories of struggles, love, and lost, stories I feared I wasn't strong enough to be part of. Yet, with every beat of my heart, I felt something shift. As I reached the door and placed my trembling hand on the cool metal handle, I exhaled slowly, gathering courage within me. I turned the knob and pushed the door open. There he lay, the boy from the alley, his face pale against the stark white sheets, the beeping machines a harsh reminder of the fragility of life. I approached slowly, every step echoing the mix of fear and hope swelling within me. And just as I stepped closer, his eyes fluttered open, meeting mine in a collision of recognition and vulnerability, like an unspoken chorus echoing between us, hectic and raw. But then, more shocking than the situation itself, I noticed the flicker of recognition in his eyes, an unguarded connection that sparked with the realization. Before my mind could race to comprehend the implications of that shared moment, a figure rushed in behind me. The door swung wide as another person entered, this time a face I had never expected to see. They looked between us, questions pooling in their gaze, and I could feel the ground beneath me shift. The connection of this moment stretched far beyond this boy and might ripple through my entire life, and in that instant, I understood that nothing would ever be the same again. The sound of the door closing behind the unexpected figure reverberated through the room, pulling all attention to the unsettling tension that had suddenly crystallized. The boy's eyes flitted between me and the newcomer, a flicker of recognition mingling with confusion. My heart raced as my mind scrambled to process the implications of this intrusion. "Sam." The newcomer's voice trembled slightly, but her composure masked a storm of emotions that threatened to spill. It was a name that rang familiar but distant, anchoring my muddled thoughts to a deeper past I had fought valiantly to forget. "What are you doing here?" I barely managed to whisper, my voice cracking under the weight of unspoken questions and unresolved feelings. Her gaze darted back to the boy, and for a moment, the room felt suspended in time. "I didn't know it was him," she admitted, clearly struggling to contain her emotions. "I came to what?" I interrupted, suddenly feeling defensive, protective even, of the fragile moment that pulsed like a heartbeat between the boy and me. "You came to what?" "To act like all of this doesn't affect you, please," she said, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You have to understand, I never wanted this life, I never wanted any of it." "Then why did you leave?" I regretted my harshness almost instantly, but the hurt that had festered over the years clawed its way out, seeking release. "Why did you disappear when I needed you?" "I was scared," she replied, voice trembling. "My world, everything was falling apart. I thought I was protecting you by stepping away, that I didn't need protecting." My voice rose, reverberating against the sterile walls. The boy's eyes flickered uneasily between us, aware of the rising tension, yet caught in a web he didn't truly understand. Realizing we were losing sight of why we were here, I took a steadying breath and turned my gaze back to the boy. "You need to leave," I said, my voice softened but firm. "This isn't the time or place, please, just listen to me," she pleaded, urgency lacing her words. "I came because I've heard what happened. I couldn't just sit back and why. Because of blood. The bitterness that coursed through my veins felt icy. It was a sharp reminder of how severed our past had been. My heart ached for clarity amid this chaos. Yes, because of blood, she burst out, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. And because I care. I can't just abandon him. Even if I did abandon you. The room grew silent save for the rhythmic beeping of the machines. The boys seemed to pulse with a connection to our history, a living reminder of choices made and roles played, both his and ours. That I turned back to him, desperately seeking to establish an anchor, holding my breath as I reached out to grasp his hand. His gaze felt steadying, a reluctant light in the storm swirling around us. "We're here for you. Just focus on breathing." The boy smiled faintly, the strength in his fragile body battling against the ordeal, while a quiet gratitude flickered in his expression. As we shared this silent communion, I felt a calming warmth coalesce within my chest. Perhaps hope wasn't entirely lost after all. An overwhelmed wave of guilt washed over me. I suddenly remembered the many faces of pain I had faced over the years. Just as I felt the burrowing comfort of connection, the new arrival's voice broke through the reverie. "Please," she said again, softer now. "Let's be honest with each other, even if it's just for the boy. You felt the pull of this moment, haven't you?" I hesitated. The tension of our shared past was palpable, but it was overshadowed by the boy's immediate needs. I could feel the weight of the choices I faced, whether to protect myself or allow access to the hurt and love bound up in our past. Before I could formulate a response, the nurse re-entering the room interrupted our fragile moment. "I'm sorry, but we need to run some tests," she announced, her voice gently authoritative. "You'll have to step out for a bit." That I felt a sharp pang of urgency as I released the boy's hand, knowing the moment of raw connection had been shattered. I lingered for a moment, desperate to connect again, even as I stepped back. Outside the room, I turned to find the young woman standing awkwardly on the other side of the door, visibly shaken but read an unexpected glimmer of resolve in her eyes that mirrored the turmoil within me. With a shaky breath, I felt the floor shift beneath us once more. The echoes of our past clamored for attention, the boy's life hanging precariously between us. "Why now?" I asked, desperation bubbling in my voice. "Because I finally see what I lost," she replied, a hint of vulnerability painting her expression. "And I can't lose him, too." The gravity of her words sank in, igniting a flicker of understanding between us. This journey was unfolding into something more intricate, layered with our shared history, a new chance for connection forged in chaos. Without knowing it, the very threads of our lives were intertwining again, all tied to the boy who lay stunned within those whitewashed walls. But just as hope flickered, a sudden realization pierced the air. A notification ping from my phone. Glancing down, my heart skipped when I saw the name flash across the screen, a ghost from my past sending chills through my body. The message read, "I know everything, meet me tonight." My breath caught in my throat, and the ground beneath me felt unforgiving, the weight of choices crashing down as the door to my past opened wider than ever. The sterile hallway stretched before me like a painful reminder of all that had transpired. My mind raced, oscillating between the urgency of the boy's situation and the chilling message that had just disrupted whatever tenuous peace we had built. The echo of my heart thrummed loudly in my chest, drowning out all reason. "Are you all right?" The woman, Sam, stood closer now, her expression a mixture of concern and confusion. "No," I replied, the word escaping as a whisper bathed in fear. My fingers trembled as I gripped my phone tighter, the screen still emanating an eerie glow. "Someone from my past just reached out." Her brow furrowed, and I could see her mind racing too. "Who? What do they want?" "I don't know," I swallowed hard, grappling with the raw tang of anxiety that churned in my gut. "But I can't go back to that. Not now, not with everything at stake." A fleeting moment of silence hung between us, as if the universe was weighing our collective anxieties against the world outside this sterile bubble. "You don't have to face this alone," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "Whatever it is, I'll stand beside you." I met her gaze and saw the sincerity radiating from her, a faint ember of hope ignited in my chest. Despite the tumult of our shared history, an unexpected warmth enveloped me, urging me to consider the possibility that maybe together, we could navigate through this darkness. Before I could respond, another voice broke through our fragile moment. "I thought I told you to step out." The nurse stood at the threshold, arms folded. Her demeanor was professional, but I could sense the edge of something deeper, a motherly protectiveness toward the boy we were both fighting for. I know, I sighed, shaking my head. "Well, go, but please, take care of him." The nurse nodded, though her gaze lingered on Sam with unspoken questions. The weight of impending decisions rested heavy on my shoulders as I turned to leave, already feeling the walls of my past closing in around me. The air outside the hospital felt different, weighty, as if it was charged with the energy of unspoken truths. I had once believed that the sunlight could melt away the darkness, but in this moment, it felt like it only magnified my trouble. My legs moved almost on instinct, carrying me toward the parking lot, where my car sat waiting like a lifeboat amidst a sea of uncertainty. Do you really think it's wise to meet them?" Sam asked, falling into step beside me, her voice laced with apprehension. "I don't have a choice," I replied, frustration lining my words. "They know something, and if I don't get ahead of it, it could ruin everything we're trying to build for him. Or they could pose a threat," she countered, urgency building. "You can't take risks when he's just stop." I snapped, turning to face her, the resolve in my voice belying the turmoil in my heart. "You don't understand. This is my life, and I'm done running from it." The moment hung between us, a fragile thread woven from a shared intent to protect but pulled taut with fear. Sam's eyes searched mine, and for a second she seemed to glimpse the depths of my hesitation. But our moment was starkly interrupted as the ground shimmered under our feet. A sharp cry rang out across the parking lot, drawing my gaze to two older teenagers who were suddenly embroiled in a fight just 20 yards away. They grappled and shoved, their voices echoing chaos as fear spread through the onlookers. "Let's go," I urged, turning to steer Sam back toward the entrance, but she hesitated. As if possessed by a force outside herself, she darted toward the fray, instincts kicking in. "Wait, Sam," I called, my heart racing as I felt the weight of my fear blossom into full panic watching her approach. But she didn't stop. Instead, she pushed through the crowd and reached the fight, fearlessly stepping between the two boys. "Stop this!" she shouted, her voice rising above the ruckus, demanding attention. The crowd hushed, momentarily transfixed by her courage. That I held my breath, torn between my instinct to protect her and a deep well of respect for her bravery. Just then, the taller boy swung out, and a sickening thud echoed as Sam took the hit meant for another. Time seemed to freeze, the world around me blurring as I rushed forward, adrenaline surging through me. "Sam!" I yelled, my voice tearing through the stillness that had enveloped the moment. As I reached her side, I felt a mix of horror and admiration. She staggered but steadied herself, eyes fierce and determined, even as pain laced her expression. What had begun as a glimmer of hope now felt like a cruel twist of fate, trapping us in a web of chaos and uncertainty. Would we ever find solace amid the storm? Would her bravery spiral into another layer of loss, or would it stitch us together in unforeseen ways? Just as I reached out to grasp her arm, my phone buzzed again, flaring with life and pulling my attention away. A new message: "I know about the boy, and I won't let you keep him from me." My heart sank like lead, and as I stared into Sam's eyes, both fear and resolve merged within me. Whatever lay ahead, we were ensnared once again by the strings of our past, now intertwining with the fragility of hope and a chilling threat that loomed just beyond the horizon. The air trembled with a restless energy, thick with the scent of grease and poorly brewed coffee from the nearby diner that fought for the attention of the weary souls wandering the streets. I could feel it in the pit of my stomach, the tight coil of unresolved tension wrapping itself around my heart, squeezing with every beat. Sam was still reeling from the blow. Her strength was undeniable, but the price she paid weighed heavily on my mind. "Are you sure you're okay?" I asked, my voice low and cautious, as we steadied ourselves just a few paces from the fray. Sam brushed aside the concern with a nonchalant wave, her jaw set as if not admitting any injury would somehow erase the pain. "He'll live," she replied, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her. We need to keep moving. Whatever is waiting for us won't wait forever. I felt a mix of frustration and admiration surge within me, but I knew from her expression that she was right. Our lives had taken on a momentum of their own, each choice spiraling toward an uncertain climax. I nodded, resolving to shield her from further harm, even if it meant placing my own walls back into position. As we approached my car, I became painfully aware of the impending conversation with the shadows of my past. The message loomed over me, a specter demanding attention, taunting my desire to keep Sam, the boy, and myself safe. Maybe we should talk about what's happening with the boy, Sam suggested, sliding into the passenger seat. Her eyes flickered over to mine, seeking reassurance. I'd rather not think about it right now, I murmured, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly as I drove away from the hospital. The reality is too heavy. I can't even fathom the idea of losing him. Not after everything. That's exactly why we have to confront whatever this is, she urged, the fire in her voice igniting my own fearful thoughts. If someone is threatening to take him away, we can't ignore it. We owe it to him to fight. Her words settled in the silence between us like a heavy curtain. Yes, I owed it to him to give him a chance at life, at hope, a chance I had narrowly clung to just days ago. The vital responsibility felt like a shackle, promising to drag me deeper into the whirlpool of my past and whatever hell it might carry. I can't let them get to him, I finally whispered, voice cracking under the weight of my emotions. I won't let him go. He deserves more, the three of us deserve more, Sam said softly. And we have each other. That counts for something, doesn't it? Her quiet belief was a balm to the rawness of my heart, but doubt danced just beneath the surface, urging me to forge ahead alone. You shouldn't have to deal with this, I murmured, guilt snaking through the cracks of my resolve. It's not your fight. It became my fight the moment I decided to be by your side, she declared, her gaze unwavering and fierce. I won't back down, and neither should you. Her determination sparked something within me, a flicker of hope nestled against the chaos of my mind. Just as I turned into a nondescript alley behind the diner, my phone vibrated wildly in my pocket. Panic surged through me, knew better than to ignore it. I unclipped my seatbelt and fished it out, dread pooling like ice in my veins. The screen lit up with a notification, a video message. Before I could process why my heart thudded so violently, I clicked on it, my palms slick with sweat as the image flickered to life. A grainy figure appeared, his features shadowed but unmistakably familiar. My stomach churned as realization washed over me. Thought you could forget me? The laughter in the background hummed with chilling familiarity, the man's voice like poison. You can't outrun your past. And I have news about the boy. Care to play along for old time's sake? The video cut off abruptly, leaving only silence thick and suffocating against the backdrop of a world that felt dangerously out of control. My breath caught in my chest, panic flooding my senses as regret pooled at my feet. Let's go. Sam's voice broke through my daze, fueling the urgency that clawed at my heart. The world outside of that moment surged back toward us, the din of life pushing forward, oblivious to the storm I now faced. But as Sam clutched my hand, grounding me in the reality of her presence, I knew I couldn't run. Not anymore. How could I face this together with Sam when dark echoes from my past threatened to engulf everything I had fought for? As I put the car in gear and raced away from the shadows of the diner, one thought consumed me. Was our bond strong enough to withstand the coming storm, or would the truths clawing their way back destroy us both? The road blurred ahead of me, each mile a cavernous stretch through memories I thought I had buried. The headlights sliced through the dim ambience, but my mind felt consumed by shadows more pervasive than the twilight. My heart raced not merely from fear, but from the insidious echoes of the past, creeping closer with every pulsating beat. Where are we headed? Sam's voice broke through the tumult in my chest, reminding me of the task that lay ahead. The weight of her curiosity was palpable, but I wasn't ready to share the tumult that brewed inside me. Just away, I managed to reply, my grip tightening around the steering wheel that felt increasingly like a lifeline slipping through my fingers. Sam studied me with those keen, empathic eyes, and for a fleeting moment, I longed to shield her from the depth of what I was feeling. But the fracture in my heart was a chasm too wide to cover, too raw to hide the truth I wanted to protect her from. "Can't run forever," she whispered, as if sensing my thoughts. Her words sank deep, echoing off the walls of my resolve, but instead of wounding me further, they kindled a spark of rebellion. I glanced at her, and something swelled in me urged not just to run, but to take charge. "You're right," I said finally, my voice firmer than before. "We need to confront what's happening. Face it together." Her nod of approval illuminated the dimness of the car's interior, all while shadows danced anxiously just beyond the glow. As I navigated through tangled streets, each turn carried me closer to the reality I had tried to evade, yet it also brought me back to the undeniable truth of our connection. "It'll get us through this," I promised, though I wasn't sure if it was for her or myself. We moved in silence, the only sound the low hum of the tires meeting the asphalt, but the atmosphere was electric charged with both dread and resilience. Laughter from a nearby park played like distant music, an irony in its juxtaposition against the turmoil gripping my chest. Just as I rounded a corner, I spotted an old convenience store, the fluorescent lights flickering like uneasy ghosts behind the glass. "Let's stop there. We might need supplies," I suggested, hoping it would afford us a moment to regroup. As we stepped into the store, the familiar ding of a bell rang out, and an elderly woman greeted us with a warm smile, her face a roadmap of kindness. "Evening, dears. What brings you two out this late?" Suddenly, I felt the weight of my burden not lighter, but somehow less lonely in her presence. "Just getting some things," I answered, forcing a smile in return despite the tumult swirling inside. As we wandered the aisles, I turned to Sam, whose eyes darted nervously across the shelves. "What do we really need?" I asked, more for affirmation than anything else. "Snacks for the road," she suggested, her voice almost teasing, but I could see the gravity lingering beneath the surface. We chose a few items: some chips, bottled water, and a couple of candy bars. They felt insubstantial against the enormity of what loomed ahead. But just as we approached the cashier, a commotion erupted outside. Sam's hand gripped my arm tight enough to anchor me. I turned in the direction of the noise, and my heart sank at the sight. A group of young men surrounded someone on the sidewalk, shouting obscenities that echoed through the night air. "Stay here," I said instinctively, urgency lining my words, but Sam wouldn't let go. "No, we can't ignore it," she demanded, her resolve sparking a flicker of defiance in my chest. Together, we stepped outside, approaching slowly as the tension escalated. I felt dread coil in my gut, a pitiful reminder of my inability to protect those I cared about. As we drew nearer, the circle parted slightly, revealing a figure hunched over, desperately trying to shield himself. "Hey! Leave him alone!" Sam's voice rang out, her cheeks flushing red with righteous anger. As they turned toward us, the laughter faded, replaced by a glare that pierced into the very marrow of my bones. But before I could react, one of the men stepped forward, and recognition crashed over me like a tidal wave. "Look who we have here," he sneered, a smile spreading over his face that sent cold shivers racing down my spine. It was Leon, the very man whose shadow I had tried to forget, the ugly stain of my past that had clawed its way back into my life. "Thought you'd run far enough?" he taunted. "But the past has a way of catching up, doesn't it?" Panic rose in me like bile, and Sam squeezed my hand tightly, her courage bolstering mine even in the face of overwhelming fear. I wrestled with the choice forming in my mind, the realities too chaotic to discern, and yet nothing stood more prominently than my need to protect. But the sudden uncertainty gave way to a stunning realization: not all battles could be avoided, nor could they be fought alone. As the challenge hung heavily in the air, I felt the weight of my decision pull taut within me. "Get away from him, Leon!" I shouted, hearing the tremor in my voice, echoing the fear that had always lingered at the edges of my heart. As the world held its breath, a profound awareness settled around my heart, a realization that whatever solace I sought, it might just come when I stood firm against the tide of my past. Would I rise, or would the terror that once ruled my life drown me again? In that moment, the air surged with the electric charge of conflict. Leon's laughter pealed through the tension like a cruel symphony, yet I felt something shift within me, a surge of determination rippling beneath the surface of fear. Walk away, I warned, my voice steady despite the storm inside me. Sam stood beside me, an unexpected pillar of strength. We won't let you hurt anyone. Leon's smirk faltered for a heartbeat, surprise dancing across his features before he renewed his bravado. And what are you gonna do about it? His eyes danced over us, scanning for a crack in our resolve. But as I met his gaze, something within me found an anchor. I'm not the same girl you once intimidated, I declared, my voice growing stronger as the vibrant hum of courage swept through me. The beauty of fear is that while it grips you, it can also forge a fire that burns fierce enough to illuminate the darkness clutching your heart. The figure huddled on the ground shifted, and I recognized the boy beneath the chaos. Stay down, just hold on, I called to him, but he glanced up, understanding flickering in his eyes. We were tethered by something unspoken. He too understood the weight of struggle, the urgency to rise above the tumultuous tide. Leon stepped closer, invading my space with a wave of aggression, but I stood my ground. I won't back down. The tremor in my hands turned into fists of resolve. Is that so? He spat, then turned to the group at his back. Let's show them what happens when you mess with the past. Panic flickered, and that was when Sam squeezed my hand tighter, grounding me amidst that whirlwind of chaos. Together, she whispered, a silent promise binding us in solidarity. I faced a choice in those fleeting seconds. Would I let the shadows of my past consume me, or would I fight for the light weaving its way through this darkness? Back off! I yelled, leveling my gaze at Leon. This isn't just about you anymore. The crowd began to shift, eyes darting curiously among us. Maybe they recognized the fight, perhaps they felt the truth of my words resonate somewhere deep within them. And then Leon's smirk faded, leaving behind a hollow expression tinged with doubt. One deep breath, and I took a step forward. You can't intimidate me anymore. At that moment, an inexplicable strength surged through me, forming an invisible armor against the bitter memories clawing for dominance. The tension pulsated in the air, waiting for a shift. And that's when I heard the wailing sirens of an approaching police car. The sound unfolded like a gasp of liberation, cutting through the thick fog of confrontation. Leon hesitated, the bravado trickling away like sand through fingers. This isn't over, he spat, but it faltered beneath the roar of authority that was overwhelming everything around us. His followers exchanged glances, uncertainty surfacing as they stepped back, following the retreat of their leader. You're right, I replied boldly, fronting my fear and wielding it fiercely in that moment. It's time to end this cycle for good. The police car screeched to a halt, and two officers jumped out, their eyes assessing the scene like hawks. Break it up! One shouted, and the crowd dispersed, the tide shifting in our favor. As one officer approached, I felt the tension melting away, seeping into the asphalt beneath our feet. Are you two okay? He asked, concern etched into his features. I exchanged a glance with Sam, a rush of relief washing over us, binding our shared victory together. Yeah, I replied, though my voice felt strangely hollow as I struggled to gather my emotions. Sam stepped forward beside me, shoulder to shoulder, our bravery forming a protective barrier against the world that had once sought to crush us. Leon retreated into the shadows, casting a final disdainful glare before disappearing, leaving behind a frayed reminder of what had just transpired. But beneath it, hope glimmered a flicker that dared to ignite in the depth of our hearts. What's happening? Sam asked, concern woven into her voice. The lad on the ground struggled to rise, and I rushed to help him as he looked up with gratitude etched on his face. Thank you, he murmured, breathing heavily, and for a moment, all the uncertainty melted away in that shared connection. We've got you, I promised, but the weight of everything I had fought through still hung heavily like chains around my heart. As we stood there, I felt something stir a sense of relentless possibility. Sam's warmth beside me felt like the compass guiding me away from the darkness I had been molded by. A realization bloomed, settling into my core. The essence of strength wasn't merely fighting against the chaos, it was choosing who to fight for. The rest of the night unfolded like a mosaic of reality painted over with the brush of hope. The boy was taken care of, the sirens faded into the distance, swallowing the chaos that had exploded mere moments ago. We were no longer standing on that precipice of heartbreak but embarking on a new journey, embracing togetherness amidst lingering uncertainty. As we settled back into the car, exhaustion trickled into my bones. "You were incredible back there," I whispered to Sam, allowing my admiration to weave into the fabric of my gratitude. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied simply, her sincerity hanging in the air like a warm embrace. In that moment, I realized the contours of our lives were shifting, a tapestry rich with hopes and dreams unfolding before our eyes, a connection stronger than fear, sewn together with the threads of our hearts. "Who would have thought?" I said, a soft laugh escaping me. "A poor girl and a millionaire's daughter, standing together against the past. Anything is possible," she smiled, her eyes sparkling with the light of a newfound future. As I turned the ignition and revved the car to life, I knew that the shadows may whisper and the ghosts of the past may linger, but together, we could confront them. We could navigate through the trials that awaited us because the real power lay not in escaping our past but in embracing our present and forging our own path forward, and in that moment, I realized the most seismic shift was yet to come. The bond we forged tonight would redefine our lives forever, radiant with the power of shared courage and blossoming hope waiting to unfold. Because in every story, the heart finds a way to write its own ending, and if we held on steadfast to the new beginning ahead, there was no limit to the lives we could change. "Together, we can rewrite the story," I whispered, feeling the warmth of hope wrap around us as I drove into the uncertain night. And in that moment, beneath the weight of stars that stretched endlessly above, I knew that this was only the beginning, an uncharted journey waiting for us to paint it with our truths.